Hi and welcome back. So my name is Marta and as you saw by the title, today I'm going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag. And two things before I start. One, it's more than a month late, but I don't really mind. I've watched so many of these videos over the past few weeks and I just think they're fun, a good way to, check in halfway through the year on our reading. And so I'm excited to share my answers. And secondly, because it's more than a month late, the stats I'm gonna show you, so I'm gonna show you some stats and then get onto the questions. And the stats are gonna be a little bit skewed, just because they will have my July books on them, but the books I will give on the answers will be from the first 6 months of the year, if that makes sense. So let's get started. First off, I have my moods for the year. I think this is a really cool thing that the Storygraph does. If you don't know, by the way, the Storygraph is an Amazon free alternative to Goodreads. So basically lets you track your reading, gives you stats at the end of the year, has a body read function that I still haven't tried yet for some reason, but it's really, really cool. So my main three moods are emotional, no one's surprised, reflective, no one's surprised, and adventurous, which if you look at my overall moods, from all of the books I've read, these are my top 3 moods anyway, so it's not a surprise. But I'm always curious to see that adventurous is up there. Because I wouldn't say, if you ask me, I wouldn't say I really read adventurous books, but I guess I do. Then in this page number graph, we can see I have not read a single book over 500 pages. I'm a short book girl, 300 is pretty much my preferred length. So here you can see I've read a bit more of books that are over 300, but during the whole year it sort of comes and goes. Then my fiction to non-fiction split is super different from last year. So now it's 90-10, but last year a third of my reading was non-fiction. I just feel I don't know, I don't think I can pinpoint a specific reason for that. I've been out of uni for over a year now, so maybe I'm I don't know, enough learning. But the non-fiction I've read has been generally really good. We come to my top genres, which are no surprise. We have contemporary, queer fiction and fantasy as my top 3. And then next we have romance, which I feel I've been reading more the past couple of years. I feel it was a big thing in my teens and now it's coming back, which I love. And then we have middle grade and young adult and literary. So those, I guess I pick up, but not loads. The middle grade, I know it's skewed to what it would usually be because I've been rereading this series from when I was a kid. But I don't really usually read middle grade. Here you can see my reading so far throughout the year. I've been quite consistent, which I guess makes sense because life hasn't been changing that much. It's just been in its usual state. Okay, so stats have been going on for long enough. Now let me get onto the questions. First question is the best book I've read so far in 2022. And I think, if I go with my heart, it's Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring-Blake. This is a romance I've talked about before as a female romance that filled my heart with joy. Because it was steamy, it was fun, I loved both the main characters and I enjoyed all of the themes that were explored besides the romantic relationship. That's always a big point for me, that there is other stuff going on. And I thought it was quite realistic the way in which the two main characters were trying to make their lives work together, which means that you need to take into consideration much more than just do we like each other? So this was so good, and I feel I could mention more things, but I'm gonna try and keep it as concise as possible, one book per answer as much as I can. So next is the best sequel I've read this year. I'm gonna put on the screen all the sequels I've read, which I feel they're not gonna be that many, aside from what I mentioned before, which is I was rereading Fairy Oak, which is a middle grade series I love. So I read all of those, but they were rereads, so I love them already, love them now. But from the new ones, I said I wanted to keep it to one book, but now I can't. Because the first book I read this year was A Stone Sky, which is the conclusion to the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. And it was great. I don't know if it was my favorite book in the trilogy. I'm usually a middle book girl. I don't know why. But I really, really enjoyed it. I loved how it tied it all together. If you don't know, The Broken Earth is a science fiction fantasy blend, masterfully crafted. This series has some stylistic choices in the narrative. It has some second person, some things that are a bit weird, and that intimidated me before I started reading it. But then toward the end, it was all tied up. They all had like it made sense. It was like those choices were made for a reason, is what I mean. So that was really cool. And something else is I read the third book in the Wayward Children series, which I've mentioned before also, I think, and this was Beneath the Sugar Sky. I feel like contrary to some people, I like all of the books so far in the series more or less the same. They have all been 4 stars for me. And this one had more of an adventurous quest vibe, and that was really cool because that was different from the previous 2. Next is a new release I haven't read yet, but I really want to, and I have so many for this. I could say Book Lovers by Emily Henry, Double Booked by Lily Linden, and also I Kissed Shara Wheeler by Casey McQuiston, but I already read that in July. Another big one, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I can't wait. And I have heard so many good things about it. The Wedding Crasher by Mia Sosa, that's another big one. I'll stick with those. I think that's like 5. Really excited about all of those. So excited. Oh my god. Then it's the most anticipated release for the second half of the year, which I feel like a couple of the ones I mentioned, I think Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow definitely came out like in July, so that would be from the second half. Another one's the second one in the Bright Falls Companion series, so the one that goes after Delilah Green, that's Astrid Parker Doesn't Fail. Can't wait to read that. But I think I don't really know many books that are coming out in the second half of the year. I feel like all the ones I was looking out for already came out mostly. Next up is Biggest Surprise, and for this I will go with A Ghost in the Throat by Doran Negrifa. I think I'm saying that right. But this is a really unique book. So I'm gonna go with this because it's a book unlike anything I've read before. It is a blend of memoir, poetry, essay, and it's about the author and her connection to this poem and her studying of this poem. It's this poem from the 1970s, and during the book she's learning a lot about the author, like her life circumstances and the intricacies and the translation of this poem. And I listened to the audiobook and read at the same time, and that was such a wonderful experience. And I feel like I don't really know who it would appeal to. If you're interested in like language, in oral tradition, in women's voices in literature, I don't know, all of that. It was a surprising book, like in the best way. Next is favorite new author, either because it's a debut or because it's new to you. For these, I'm gonna mention stuff that I haven't mentioned yet. So one of them would definitely be Adiba Jaigirdar. I read Honey and Issue's Guide to Fake Dating a couple months ago, and now don't read as much young adult anymore, but I'm really looking forward to getting through her other titles because I really like her writing and, I don't know, her voice, if that makes any sense. Then Emily Henry, because I'm finally on the Emily Henry train. I've only read Beach Read, but as I told you before, I'm really excited for Book Lovers, and I guess You and Me on Vacation as well. I shouldn't be surprised because like everyone's been hyping up her books, but I wasn't part of the club yet, and now I am. And another one in a similar vein is Madeline Miller, because I read Circe and I own The Song of Achilles now. Another super loved author that I just hadn't tried, and now I have, and I understand. Next is newest fictional crush, and I'm sorry, but Delilah Green and Claire from my favorite book. And I guess also goes from from beach read, because why not? Next is newest favorite character, and for that I think I'm gonna say Ishita, so Ishu from Honey and Issues. I really related to her as a character. I loved reading from her perspective in the book, and I don't know, I really connected with her character really connected with teenage me. Next is a book that made you cry, and for this one I'm just gonna say the one that I remember the most, which is how much I cried at beach read. They just had a moment. I was listening to the audiobook, which usually makes me think I'm not gonna cry as much for some reason, but there was a moment toward the end that made me truly sob. Like, I've teared up at multiple books, but this one made me sob big time. A book that made me happy would have to be Nevermore by Jessica Townsend. This is a really beloved middle grade series, and I tried it out this year, and it was just a really lovely story. I haven't continued on it yet, but I think I might, and I think I might switch to the audiobooks because I've heard they are really good. Next, I feel like I'm losing light a little bit, but next is The Most Beautiful Book You've Bought This Year, and for this one I think I have to say I Kissed Cheryl Wheeler by Casey McQuiston. This one is the Indigo exclusive, and it has really beautiful foil on the front, and it has amazing end papers, and I have to be honest, I didn't really like the blue cover. I liked the green and purple better, and I had a family member coming over to visit, and I fully asked them if they could bring this for me, and I'm really happy I did. And then the other one would have to be, I don't really have it with me right now, but I bought a Catalan edition of Jane Eyre hardback, but the naked hardback, the kind that doesn't have like a dust jacket over it. I'll just put up a picture because it's truly stunning. I'm a little bit intimidated because it's 600 pages, but it is really beautiful. Last question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? And because I already mentioned a bunch of 2022 releases, I'm going to mention some older books that I'm really excited to get to. One of them is Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. This is a non-fiction that I started reading on as an ebook a while back, and I was loving it, and now I have my own physical copy, so I can't wait to get to that. Another one is The Song of Achilles, which I mentioned owning. I'm really excited for that as well. And lastly, let's go for one I don't own, which is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers, which I'm really excited to start that series. So yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. I feel like I rambled a lot, and I guess I also wanted to highlight that this year so far, this first half of 2022, another really cool thing that's book related is that I started the videos, putting this up, and I've just had a lot of fun doing it so far. I hope to continue to do it throughout the other half of the year and beyond. So thank you so much for joining me once more. Let me know what's the best book you've read so far this year, because I would love to have more recommendations, because clearly I don't have enough books that I want to read. So again, thank you so much for being here, and I hope to see you again here soon. Bye!